Many patients participate in research and enroll in particular clinical trials. This is vital to the development of new and better treatments for a wide variety of diseases. Without the willingness of these patients and other research participants, innovation would be far slower and potentially stagnant. Institutional review boards, or IRBs, review every protocol and ensure that studies that are conducted comply with nationally acceptable ethics guidelines and do not put patients at undue risk. IRBs also review protocols to ensure that a patient's privacy is protected and that the study is conducted in a HIPAA-compliant manner. But what about the security of your data as a subject that is collected? It may be blinded and the patient may not be identifiable, but what happens when a particular institution shares that data with industry? Recently, one particular area of concern for many involves sharing of a subject's DNA sequencing collected by a research institution with a third party, such as a pharmaceutical company. Let's take a closer look at this issue, as it has really hit the headlines in the last week. Some volunteers may simply donate their DNA for analysis for a particular hospital, and the upside for the patient is that they receive free genetic testing and complimentary comprehensive genetic counseling. For the hospital, the collection of this type of data can lead to high-impact innovation, but it also can lead to revenue and big bucks. Genomics provide great promise in the development and treatment and potential cures for once incurable diseases. And institutions such as the Geisinger in Pennsylvania, Mount Sinai in New York, and the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, just to name a few, are actively working on creating DNA databanks for analysis. Pharma has been spending an increasingly large amount of money to purchase access to patient DNA databases. For example, 23andMe partnered with GlaxoSmithKline and provided Glaxo with its unlimited access to its genetic data. In return, they got millions of dollars. Now, some well-respected not-for-profit hospitals have collected genetic data for their own research and sequencing projects, and they have struck exclusive deals with individual pharma companies to share these DNA databases in return for millions of dollars. Drug makers, in turn, stand to make millions of dollars, if not billions, from the development of new drugs spawned from lessons learned from these genetic databases. So what is the big deal? Works for everybody, right? Well, some experts and ethics boards worry that patients and study volunteers may have no idea exactly how their genetic data is being used and may not be aware that hospitals and potentially drug makers stand to profit significantly from their participation in a clinical study. Many patients may not be happy to find out that their volunteerism directly results in the exchange of millions of dollars, not to mention enriching a drug company's pockets. Additionally, these agreements between a particular hospital and a pharmaceutical company to share this data are very restrictive and limit the sharing of data beyond those involved in the particular transaction. For years, medical researchers have asked for data sharing. Data sharing between institutions and pharma companies could result really in much quicker development, shorten the cycle, and avoid duplication of work. However, no drug company in its right mind would ever want to share its findings with a competitor, and no hospital would want to share information that could potentially provide a competitive advantage within a given market. So it's just not going to happen. The hospitals involved are able to move forward with research much faster with the funding gained through these agreements with industry. If the same institutions relied solely on public funding, many would not even be able to begin these type of genetic sequencing projects because they're very expensive. Most use very broad, open-ended consent for data use when engaging with patients in these DNA sequencing projects. Ultimately, this is going to remain an area of controversy for a while. I think we must continue to have partnerships between industry and academics for the purposes of research, but we also need to make sure that patients are well informed as to the potential uses of their genetic data, and that when we do share patient data, it's done so in a way that certainly respects their privacy. For me, the most important issue at hand is that data sharing and open access to data. We've got to figure out a way to get competitors to work together. Maybe this is a pipe dream. But when data is shared, Innovation occurs much faster, work is not duplicated, and patients, our patients, stand to benefit in a much more timely fashion.